Good morning.
Morning.
Welcome to the Dental Board of California quarterly meeting. Today is Thursday, December 7th. And I know that because it's written down in front of me. I want to ask all of us to please turn our cell phones to silent and make sure that they're off the table so that we can avoid feedback noise. You may notice board members accessing their laptops during the meeting. They're using the laptops solely to access the board meeting materials that are in electronic format. This is an official meeting of the Dental Board of California. The board welcomes public comment on any item on the agenda, and it is the board's intent to ask for public comment prior to the board taking action on any agenda item. If for any reason I forget to ask for that and you wish to speak on that item, please raise your hand and you will be recognized. Depending on the number of people who would like to testify on a particular agenda item, a time limit may be imposed. We ask all speakers to please stay on topic, and if a time limit is determined to be necessary, keep your comments to within that time limit. And I would add, also try not to repeat what others have said. So with that, I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask the board secretary to please call the roll.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
I have my coach on the right and my trainer on the left. Burton.
Here.
Burton present. Chan present. Chappelle Ingram.
Present.
Chappelle Ingram present. Lai. Lai present. Laren. Laren present. Lee. Lee present. Mackenzie. Mackenzie present. Medina. Medina present. Morrow. Morrow present. Alagi. Alagi present. Pacheco. Pacheco present. Stewart. Stewart present. Witcher. Witcher present. You present. Madam Chairman, we have a quorum. I didn't mess up.
No, except that you did call me a man, but that's okay.
Madam.
You said Madam Chairman.
Oh.
So you just...
It's a generic.
You covered both of your bases there.
Absolutely.
Okay.
If I may make an announcement, the mics, board members, are always on. So if you would prefer to move it out of your way, but I would suggest just no sidebar conversations. And if you see people in the audience going, oh my gosh, they've heard something they shouldn't have heard, that's our sign that, the mics are live.
Okay, the first item on the agenda is the meeting minutes from November 29th. Are there any questions, concerns, corrections?
Madam President, I'd like to offer a change to the minutes since I wrote them. So be very gentle, board members, as you show me how bad I am at proofreading. But on page 7, the bottom of the paragraph where it says, after much discussion, the board identified 12. We need to insert questions. And that's my only change to the minutes at this point.
It should be Acheson.
Thank you. Anything else? Is there a motion?
Move to approve Witcher.
Second.
Should be approved as amended. Thank you.
Second.
And if I could ask from the onset, When you make a motion, if you would also give your name, please. Second, Chappelle Ingram. Any public comment? And ask the secretary to take the roll.
All right. And this is for the agenda item on the minutes. First motion was by Witcher, second was by Chappelle Ingram, as amended. Burton?
Yes.
Burton, aye. Chan, aye. Chappelle Ingram?
Aye.
Chappelle Ingram, aye. Lai? Lai, aye. Laren? Laren, aye. Lee? Okay. Sorry, I messed up. Lee? Aye. Mackenzie? Mackenzie, aye. Medina? Medina, aye. Morrow? Morrow? Morrow, aye. Alagi? Alagi, aye. Pacheco? Pacheco, aye. Stewart? Stewart, aye. Witcher? Witcher, aye. You? You, aye. Motion passes.
Thank you. Okay. Item 3 is the board president report and welcome. So good morning again, and welcome to this first dental board meeting of 2019. I am honored to serve as your president this year. As usual, we have a robust agenda for these 2 days, and we have a busy year ahead. As you know, the board and other boards and committees and the Department of Consumer Affairs will go through the sunset review process. Our focus on the board's sunset review will be most of what we do this year as we prepare the background information for the hearing, provide testimony, respond to issues and recommendations resulting from the hearing, and work on legislation in our sunset bill. You will hear more on that from Ms. Fisher later. We will also follow legislation, work on regulations, enforcement, examinations, and other subjects this year, along with any other emerging issues. I'd like to begin with a reminder of our charge. The priority of the board is protection of the public. It is our highest priority in exercising our licensing, regulatory, and disciplinary functions. Whenever the protection of the public is inconsistent with other interests sought to be promoted, the protection of the public is paramount. All of us in this room represent some part of dentistry and dental assisting and hygiene. In some cases, our interests will be different when that is the case. We will have to agree to disagree, hopefully without being disagreeable. But there will be times where we will have to agree to disagree. We will make every effort to hear your concerns. The 14 of us at this dais are charged with the administration of the Dental Practice Act, a distinct privilege. In that regard, I would ask that you do due diligence to be prepared to participate in every meeting. I understand that it's not always easy, but it is always necessary. There were 3 meetings I participated in since we met last. The first was a conference call with the Director Grafito on December 7, 2018. The director and staff provided various updates and information on board training requirements. You will hear more specifics on that when DCA makes its report. The second meeting, also in December, was with the Business Consumer Services and Housing Agency, mostly to determine whether we needed assistance with talking points on our preparation for the Sunset Review hearing, and to talk about the regulatory process in terms of our regulation packages and getting them through the Office of Administrative Hearings in a timely manner. Finally, the Advisory Committee Partnership for the Department of Public Health, Office of Oral Health, of which the board is a partner, met to review the current 2-year work plan and to make recommendations for the next 2-year work plan. These meetings are so uplifting because everyone gets to hear what's going on in the field and what's going on to enhance good oral health practices in our communities. Dr. Lay and I are the board's representatives to that committee. And then lastly, some housekeeping that you just heard before about silencing your devices, and for our partners and guests in the audience to keep your conversations at a respectful tone so as not to be disruptive to others. And I'm going to thank you in advance for your cooperation with that. I'm really looking forward to a good meeting. But before we go forward with the agenda, I'd like to make a presentation on behalf of the board to Dr. Stewart. And I'm going to read this and then ask you if you would please come and receive it. Thomas H. Stewart, DDS, alumni of Howard University, that's my own, President, Dental Board of California 2018, in grateful appreciation for your outstanding service and leadership. And I would add your quiet and determined way to conduct the meetings in this last year. They're not always easy. And for that, we are really grateful. So we'd like to present this to you.
Fran, wait a minute, there's a picture.
So the next item on our agenda is a report of DCA staffing and activities. And we'd like to welcome the director. Your timing was great.
Apologize for my inability to be at multiple places simultaneously. If that were the case, I'd be able to come visit and address the board more often. But I do try to ensure that my timing works well, and so I'm glad I'm able to assist with your folks' large agenda day with that timing. And with that, President Burton, Vice President Morrow, Executive Officer Fisher, and members of the board. Good morning. Thank you for allowing me to give a brief presentation about what's going on over at the department. And before I start, let me also say Happy Lunar New Year to you all. As folks often do, when a new year is upon us, it's important to reflect on last year's. And so I'll briefly do that in my presentation. In that vein, I'm going to recap some of the things that kept us busy in 2018. I've said this at some of the other boards that I've addressed. March will be 2 years for me in this role. And when I first got the gig, I have 2 girls, and my wife would often ask, how's your day? What'd you do? And probably about 6 months into it, they quickly were able to predict, do you have some meetings that you went to, Dad? And this past year, we convened 9 licensing enforcement workgroup meetings, which are all workgroup sessions that convene staff from all DCA boards in order to share the best practices in the areas of licensing enforcement. As you folks very well know, 37 programs under the department. Licensing enforcement is preeminent in terms of the role, responsibilities. Maybe there are 37 different approaches. Nonetheless, felt these licensing enforcement work groups by design we were able to establish best practices towards those goals. Completely recognize that that's a work in progress as well. People change, maybe policy legislation changes, so it's going to be an ongoing project. It's not as if the work is done since we've been doing it these past 2 years, but definitely the ability for our programs to share best practices has happened and will continue. We hosted 3 substance abuse coordination committee meetings, which provided boards with additional options for drug testing substance abuse licensees. We held 4 directors' quarterly meetings, which were opportunities for board executive officers to connect directly with me and the DC executive team. Again, with the vastness and the diversity of our programs, I think it's so very important that we're very religious about meeting quarterly. Things can happen quickly, situations change quickly, and I believe that in order to ensure that hopefully we are continuing to try to get out of our silos, these quarterlies offer those opportunities where I can directly interact with the executives of the different programs. And finally, we hosted 2 directors board membership leadership teleconferences, which were opportunities for board presidents and vice presidents to connect directly with me on issues that are important to DCA boards. Thank you to the board and board staff for participating in these convenings. We hope these activities promoted open dialogue and collaboration in our shared mission of protecting California consumers. And as you know, we're also looking for feedback on how to improve. If you have any suggestions about what you would like to see in 19, feel absolutely free to communicate feedback directly to us. In particular, you folks are very familiar with my colleague in the Office of Board and Bureau Services. Just want to point out Patrick Lay is your direct connection to DCA. And kind of in that vein about always wanting to get feedback from all of you and others, I've said it publicly, I've said it many times. This may shock you, it's good that you're all sitting down. I do not have monopoly on good ideas. What I do try and do is, again, seek out the subject matter experts, whether it's specific to dentistry or otherwise. I pride myself in openly doing that, consistently doing that. And I believe, given a specific policy area or specific situation, if you do, in fact, have literally the right folks in the room, generally speaking, we're going to arrive at the right decision. Please always impress upon me that I'm always doing that. Yes, talk is cheap. I think I've been able to act on that, but it's going to require true partnership, and I'm going to consistently try to do that as long as I'm here in this role and beyond. Specific to DCA's annual report. Since we're discussing 18 in review, I also want to let you know that the DCA annual report is now available online. This report contains a much more comprehensive review of the department's activities throughout last year. It provides a full counting of achievements for the 38 partner boards, bureaus, and commissions that make up our happy family. When you have a moment, I encourage you to review the annual report on the DCA website. Transition in the governor's budget. As you all know, Monday, January 7th, marked a new era for our state. as Governor Newsom was sworn in as the 40th governor of this great state. We at DCA are honored and excited to be part of this new team. Our department is looking forward to doing all that we can to further the governor's mission. The department has met with the transition team and many new and some familiar faces that have been appointed to new positions in the governor's office. As for our current appointees, there's nothing you need to do other than continuing the service and great work you have all been doing on this board. We will be working with them regarding appointment vacancies and pending reappointments in the near future. Specific to the governor's budget. On January 10, the governor released his budget outlining his priorities for the state. The budget is based on the driving idea of a California for all. It proposes to pay down debts and pension obligations, continues to build up robust budget reserves, while making significant investments in housing, childcare, healthcare, preschool, and higher education, to name a few. Immediately following the budget release, the department hosted a teleconference with board leadership, executive officers, and bureau chiefs to discuss the governor's 1920 proposed budget and to review proposals with the budget specific to the department. I know understanding how the governor's budget translates to your individual budget is a top priority, so I want to reiterate, as I did on the call, that our fiscal operations, they've already met with board leadership on January 18th, and there, as by design, get a better understanding of the budget in greater detail. January 18th isn't the end-all, be-all. Always feel free to ask more with our fiscal operations specific to your budget. Obviously a critical piece of the board. Related to the Directors' Quarterly Meeting, on February 25th, I will host the first 19 Directors' Quarterly Meeting. At this meeting, DCA will provide an update on DCA's Regulations Unit, the Executive Officer Salary Study, and several division updates. As you may recall, these quarterly meetings are an opportunity to ensure that I'm available to your important issues facing our programs. Met this year, like last, the 2019 is a mandatory sexual harassment prevention training year for the Department of Consumer Affairs. This means all employees and board members are required to complete the training this year, even if you completed it last year. Again, you will have to complete the 19 mandatory sexual harassment prevention training this year as well. This is an important opportunity to make sure that the department does all it can to promote a safe working environment for all. The training is online, it's interactive, and can be completed at your convenience. If you have questions about this or any other required training during your tenure on the board, please contact you know who to over my shoulder on my left, Dr. Clay. Specific to the Sunset Review hearing. Before I close, I want to acknowledge that the board will be one of 10 programs undergoing its legislative sunset review this year. This process will be an opportunity to highlight the excellent work that the board has been doing and greater input and suggestions from the state, legislature, stakeholders, and interested parties. As you undergo sunset review, I want to reaffirm that the Dental Board of California has the full support of the Department of Consumer Affairs. Should you need it, DCA will make all necessary resources available to you to help prepare for the upcoming hearing in March. Our legislative affairs team is available to you for any support or preparation you may need for your sunset review. This can include conducting mock hearings or reviewing your questions and responses. While some of you have gone through sunset many times before, again, so important that we continue to partner and collaborate towards a successful sunset review. Again, please don't ever hesitate to contacting us if there are things that you'd like us to assist towards that effort. This concludes the department update, and as always, the department can be of service to the board. Please let us know. And again, thank you very much for the time and your valued partnership. Happy to entertain any questions you folks may have. That being said, I want to be very respectful of your very, very busy agenda these next 2 days.
Thank you. Are there questions?
Who's your favorite
What's your favorite board to work with?
That is a very critical question. I've said it publicly, and I'm going to remain consistent. It has everything to do with the fact that I was very honored that Governor Brown asked me to be a commissioner on the California State Athletic Commission. Much to the chagrin of my dog, who probably feels that the vet board should be its favorite. As you're alluding to, difficult to kind of pick a favorite of 37. Again, is directly related to my history on that commission. Appreciate the question. Don't know how familiar. Pardon me? Oh, without a question. Without a question. Yes, I very much care about good dental health. Thank you very
When
much.
you're sitting in the dentist chair, the dental board is your favorite.
I wanted to make sure that I'm always honest, and even though I'm in front of the dental board or when I'm talking to my dentist, yes, I do have actually a good history with my current dentist. Many folks that you may know, Stephen and Michael Casagrande are my dentists. And so, believe you me, whether he likes it or not sometime, or either of them likes it or not, when I do visit, inevitably I do have some questions, whether it's specific to pediatric dental anesthesia or otherwise. And I find this very, very worthwhile. Appreciate the question as well. Thank you very much, folks.
Okay, the next item is the budget report.
Good morning. My name is Sarah Wallace. I'm the Assistant Executive Officer of the Dental Board. In your board packets, we've provided background materials for our current budget report. We've prepared meeting materials regarding the board's and the dental assisting's budget from July 1st of 2018 through October 31st of 2018. That is considered the closeout of fiscal month number 4. You'll see in your board meeting packet, we have spent approximately $4.2 million of our total dentistry fund appropriation for 18-19. And of that amount, approximately $2.3 million of the expenditures were for personnel services and $1.9 million were for operating expenses and equipment. And this year we have a total appropriation of $14,142,000. We've included attachments in your board meeting packets of our expenditure projections and our fund condition. Moving on to the second page, for the State Dental Assisting Fund, we have a total appropriation of $2.557 million for 18-19. Through October 31st of 2018, the board spent approximately $763,000, or 30% of its total fund appropriation for this time period. Of that amount, approximately $323,000 of the expenditures were for personnel services, and $440,000 were for operating expenses and expenditures. And again, we've provided the expenditure projections and the dental assisting fund condition. So in addition to what we've been working on for fiscal year 18-19, we also submitted several budget change proposals for fiscal year 19-20, which were included as part of the governor's budget that was released on January 10th. And I'm proud to say that in the governor's budget, the board received several positions to go forward through the budget process, and we're hopeful that it will end up being signed and become law effective July 1st of 2019. So for the Dental Assisting Fund, we received one permanent full-time staff services manager 1 position. Currently we have Tina Valerie in a 2-year limited term position. This would in effect make the position permanent. We also received a permanent full-time staff services analyst to be able to conduct the continuing education audits for dental assisting. On the dentistry side, we received a 0.2 AGPA position, or Associate Governmental Program Analyst, and a 0.5 Staff Services Analyst position. This was to round out 2 positions that we've historically overexpended to be able to conduct the workload that's been required. So this will make both of those positions full-time permanent positions. We were also received authority for 2 of our blanket positions to become permanent full-time. And as a result of SB 501, the board received 1 Staff Services Manager 1 position, 2 Associate Governmental Program Analysts, and 1 Staff Services Analyst that are all full-time permanent positions. So in total, the board is looking at adding approximately 8.7 positions in fiscal year 1920. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that report, Sarah. I wanted to point out that board members, when you're looking at your material, when you're looking at your expenditure projections, really the bottom line, literally the bottom line is what you're looking at. And you can see that we're on track, we're not overexpending, and that we typically have what we call a reversion at the end of a fiscal year that goes back into our fund. So we're not overexpending. The line item sections of it are interesting but not critical. We have the ability to move between line items, so really we're focusing on the bottom line. The fund condition is also important, and the bottom line also on that is we're continuing to look at the months in reserve. And you'll recall a couple of years ago when we needed to raise our fees, that we were in minus conditions, and we're working our way back up to have a more robust fund in the event that we have an unforeseen circumstance that we need to pay for. So it's looking good. We're getting back on track. So that's a relief for all of us. So with that said, are there any questions about the budget report? Thank you, Sarah.
Any public comment? Seeing none, the next item is the appointment of the appointments to the Dental Assisting Council.
Everybody stay away from Fran and Sarah. We maybe should supply masks to everybody.
You haven't heard from me yet, but stay away from Dr. Lay too.
Oh, yeah, stay away from Dr. Lay.
So the Dental Assisting Council considers all matters relating to dental assisting in California. The council meets in conjunction with the board meetings. We have 5 current members plus 2 board members that compose the Dental Assisting Council. In May of 2018, the board had appointed Ms. Ovard, who is a registered dental assistant, to fill a vacancy for a member who was employed as a faculty member of an RDA educational program approved by the board. At that time, the term for the position in which she was appointed expires next month. So the board staff recommends that she be reappointed for a term of 4 years. So that would bring her to her term expiring in March of 2023. So we are asking the board to consider reappointing Ms. Ovard to the Dental Assisting Council for a term of 4 years expiring in March of 2023.
And a little sidebar on this. So all of our positions, including the governor's appointment and then the DAC appointments, keep going even though a vacancy occurs in that position. So oftentimes you'll see a governor make an appointment, but the term is not a full 4 years, especially if the appointment comes like midway through. So that's what happened in the case of the dental assisting program. And staff recommended, without going back out for recruitment, that we allow Ms. Ovard to continue in that position.
I'd like to move that item.
Witcher.
Move Witcher, second McKenzie. No questions? Any public comment? I'm going to call for the vote.
Right.
Agenda item 6.
Burton.
Aye.
Burton, aye. Chan, aye. Chappelle Ingram.
Aye.
Chappelle Ingram, aye. Lai.
Yes.
Lai, aye. Laren. Laren, aye. Lee. They.
Got me started from last year.
Okay. Sorry. Mackenzie, aye. Medina. Medina, aye. Morrow.
Aye.
Morrow, aye. Alagi. Alagi, aye. Sorry. Pacheco.
Yes.
Pacheco, aye. Stewart.
Yes.
Stewart, aye. Witcher.
Aye.
Witcher, aye. You.
Yes.
You, aye. Motion passes.
Okay.
Okay.
The next item is the Dental Assistant Council meeting. So I'm going to ask the members of the council to come forward and those board members who are not on the council to move to the audience.
So since I was appointed acting chair, since we didn't have a chair, I'll continue until we have an election. So with that, I'd like to call the meeting to order. And someone please call the roll.
I'll be someone. Contreras? Contreras absent. Davis Washington? Davis Washington absent. Olagi? Olagi present. Ovard?
Present.
Ovard present. Peacock?
Present.
Peacock present. Rodriguez? Rodriguez present. Witcher?
Here.
Witcher present. You have a quorum.
Thank you. Moving ahead, I'd like to take up the next item, which is approval of the minutes. Are there any additions or corrections to the meeting minutes from the November 29th, 2018 council meeting? Seeing no changes, could we have a motion to approve?
Olagi, motion to approve. Ovard, second.
Okay, we could go ahead and call the roll.
Did you want to take public comment?
Oh, yeah. Any public comment on the meeting minutes of the council meeting from November? Okay, seeing none.
Okay. Calling the roll to adopt the meeting minutes. Contreras absent. Davis Washington absent. Olagi?
Yes.
Olagi aye. Ovard?
Yes.
Ovard aye. Peacock?
Aye.
Peacock aye. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Rodriguez aye. Witcher?
Yes.
Witcher aye. Motion passes.
Okay, the next item is our election of council chair and vice chair. And I'd like to, the description of the duties of the chair and vice chair are included in your meeting materials. I won't repeat them here in the interest of time. With that, I'd like to open nominations for vice chair.
I'd like to nominate Ms. Olagi for vice chair.
Okay, so we have one nomination for vice.
That better?
Good.
Do you need me to repeat that? I'd like to nominate Ms. Olagi for vice chair.
Are there any additional nominations for vice chair?
Do you accept that nomination?
Yes, I accept.
Thank you.
Seeing no additional nominations, I declare nominations closed. Could we go ahead and have a vote on vice chair?
Contreras absent. Davis Washington absent. Olagi?
Yes.
Olagi aye. Ovard?
Yes.
Ovard aye. Peacock?
Yes.
Peacock aye. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Rodriguez aye. Witcher?
Yes.
Witcher aye. Congratulations.
Next, I'd like to open nominations for the position of chair of the Dental Assisting Council.
Dr. Witcher, I would like to nominate Ms. Rodriguez for chair of the Dental Assisting Council.
Do you accept?
Yes.
Are there any additional nominations for chair? Seeing none, I declare nominations closed, and we can go ahead and proceed with a vote.
Contreras absent. Davis Washington absent. Olagi?
Yes.
Olagi, aye. Ovard?
Yes.
Ovard, aye. Peacock?
Aye.
Peacock, aye. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Rodriguez, aye. Witcher?
Yes. Witcher,
Aye. Congratulations.
With that, I'm handing the gavel over to you.
Immediate. Really? I don't get 1 meeting to prepare? Okay.
At your pleasure.
We'll help you.
Will you help me along?
Oh,
Well,
yeah,
yeah, we'll
absolutely,
definitely do that.
absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, now we'd like to have an update on the dental assisting program and course application and RDA program reevaluations.
Good morning, Tina Valerie, manager of the dental assisting unit. Currently, the board has one analyst reviewing and processing all program and course applications and program reevaluations. This memo provides an overview of the reevaluations that are currently underway, along with the program and course applications and the status of each application. Page 2 begins the overview of the reevaluations that are currently underway. Board staff is sending notifications to the programs that have been identified as needing a reevaluation on a monthly basis. These programs have been sent applications along with a request for submission of their curriculum. As of January 9th, we have sent out 57 notices and have received responses from 55 programs. 14 programs have notified the board of their closure. 1 program has requested an extension. 8 programs have gone through the reevaluation and have been reapproved. 8 programs have had their curriculum and applications reviewed by our subject matter experts and have outstanding deficiencies. 12 programs have submitted their curriculum and applications for review. 10 are with our subject matter experts, and 2 were just recently received in our office. 1 program is having a new notice sent out in February. 1 program has not responded, and 12 new notices were sent in November and January. Page 5 begins the overview of the programs and course applications. Table 1 shows that we have received 56 applications to date, and it provides a breakdown of each application approved in 2018. Table 2 shows that we have conducted 21 site visits this year. Table 3 is an overview of each application's status, and Table 4 shows the total number of approved programs and courses. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I think maybe this question came up last time, but if you could just refresh my memory. On the deficiencies, what are those deficiencies? Do we know, or?
So we tried to give a little bit more information in the memo as to the areas of the deficiencies without getting into the specifics for each program. So it's just different areas where they're short on just different items. So we tried to kind of give an overview of those deficiency areas, but we're working closely with those programs to help them, meet the deficiencies and get them rectified. So then that way they can move on in the process.
As I understand it, you're taking new applications and approving those prior to doing the reapprovals?
Correct. So again, we only have one analyst at the moment. One of the AGPAs in my unit took another position. So currently we just have one analyst doing it. And so yes, all the new program and course applications are priority and the reevaluations are secondary to those. So I still think we're moving very quickly through all of them, but we do try to prioritize the new applications first.
Yeah, your median time for new applications is 220 days. So obviously your reapprovals are going to be moving at a slower pace. And I guess one of the concerns I would have is as you're sending out more and more reapproval notices, you're going to accumulate a workload. And if you've only got one staff position doing it, it seems that, you're going to fall, progressively behind. Unless that somehow gets addressed. So hopefully you can fill that position.
We are definitely working on it, and also we have subject matter experts that are reviewing the curriculum, and so we do have one staff person that's the organizer of all of that information and getting things out to the consultants, but it's not just one person doing all of it, so if that helps.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, it's just, I see the potential for this to bog down, because as you get more reapprovals in the pipeline, now you don't get a lot of new applications at least, so you are able to probably stay ahead of those. I just want, it's a fairly sizable project. I mean, those curricula are enormous, and to go through them and then all the standalone courses as well, it just seems like a tremendous amount of work. So I'm glad you guys seem to feel confident you're able to keep up with it.
I think we can do it.
I think this is an opportunity to emphasize. I mean, we're using subject matter experts to review the curriculum. So we recruited and trained. How many do we have?
I don't know the exact number. It's 12.
I think it was 12 or 14 that attended the recent training session that we had in Sacramento. We had a 2-day training session. We're continuously recruiting additional subject matter experts, so anybody that's interested is welcome to apply. But the training went very well. They were given test curriculum to review, and the results have all come back well. So they're going to be launching an additional reviewers to review the actual curriculum applications that we're reviewing.
Oh, good. Well, that'll help. Well, I saw that was also the largest line item budget in the dental assisting budget. It was $175 for the year. So
yes,
at least you have some resources
It
allocated.
typically is, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can I ask, when you have a program that's delinquent, how much time does it take to have that delinquency reevaluated?
You mean deficient?
Deficient, yeah, if they're deficient, sorry.
So I don't think there's like a particular amount of time. We obviously give them, I think it's 60 days to respond to the deficiency. If they need more time, we're working closely with them and granting the time as needed, obviously without going too far out, but we want to be accommodating and give them the time it needs to correct those deficiencies.
But if you're so far behind in the reevaluations of the other ones that you've sent out, is that getting done in a timely manner?
I'm not sure what you mean by being so far behind.
Well, if you have so far out the reevaluations, you keep sending packets out for schools to be reevaluated, and if the timeline is really hard to get those done, if you're 200 days out, but you have a school that's delinquent, is that a priority to get that? If the school sends that information in, is it priority to get that delinquent school reevaluated? Does that make sense?
Well, are you asking if we're prioritizing the deficiencies above new ones?
Yes.
So I would have to check with the analysts because I'm not, but I would say yes, more than likely that's what they're doing to finish the one evaluation before starting another one. But I could come back at the next meeting and give more clarification on how the process is actually working with the deficient programs.
The deficient programs aren't being penalized. They're deficient. We're working with them for them to address. Most of the deficiencies are documents that's deficient. None of the reevaluations, to my knowledge, have resulted in the need to conduct another site evaluation. So we're talking about documentation that's deficient and working with that program to secure and make sure that they're providing that. I think there was some concern that I've heard recently that if they're deficient, then their graduates wouldn't be considered to be able to apply for RDA licensure, and that's not the case. They continue to be approved until they're not approved. And at this time, I have no reason to believe that any of these reevaluations are going to result in a non-approval.
That was my next question. Okay.
Is there any public comment or questions regarding item number 4, agenda item number 4? If none, we will move on to item number 5.
I do think there's a
sorry.
couple people in the back.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Just just add one comment I just heard from our analyst who's watching the webcast, and she said that the deficiency responses are typically pretty easy and are given priority over the new audits that are conducted.
Good. Okay.
Hi, my name is Zania Delling, and I am representing a group of educators regarding the site visits. And so I'm going to read, they can't be here today, so I'm helping them by reading their information.
Excuse me. Do you have any comments regarding what was just reported?
Yeah, this is the comments, what you just reported. I believe so. This message is from Kara Miyazaki as a program director of Foothill College Dental Assisting Program. I've asked for my statement to be read to the Dental Assisting Council. I've been contacted by several Northern California Dental Assisting Programs directors with concerns about the reevaluation audit process. As a CODA-approved program...
This item did not relate to the process that is utilized by the board.
It's about the deficiencies.
But it has to relate to the update itself regarding the reevaluations and course applications.
This is about that. But should I do this with the? Should I say this when
you can speak about this during public comment on items not on the agenda? This would have to be specifically agendized.
Okay, I'll do that. I'll come back.
Thank you.
Okay, if no further comment, we'll move to agenda item number 5, update on dental assisting examination statistics.
Okay, so currently the board offers 4 written examinations: the RDA Combined General Written and Law and Ethics Exam, the RDA EF Written, the Orthodontic Assistant Permit Written, and the Dental Sedation Assistant Permit Written Exam. This memo provides an overview of the candidates that have been tested over the last 12 months and the passing and failing scores for each exam. The tables also break down each examination by first-time and repeat candidates and their passing and failing scores. The board also offers the RDA EF clinical and practical examinations, which were offered in February, May, August, October, and November of 2018 in both Northern and Southern California. A breakdown of each exam has been included. We have also included numerous pages of statistics for each program approved by the board and the passing score for each of them as well. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Wanted to add, sorry, can you hear me? At the last meeting, I know that there was concern. I believe Ms. Ovard had requested additional information relating to the passing score and whether or not there was a concern. Just a quick update, we are working with the Office of Professional Examination Services to evaluate that, and I hope to have an update at a future meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, any public comment on item number 5? Okay. If not, we'll move to agenda item number 6, update on dental assisting licensing statistics.
The board currently licenses in the dental assisting unit RDAs, RDA-EFs, OAs, and DSAs. This memo provides an overview of the current and active, current and inactive, delinquent, and canceled licenses. This item also provides a breakdown of licenses per county and the ratio of RDAs to DDSs licensed within those counties. Beginning on page 4, there are tables indicating the number of applications received by the board in 2018, as well as those that have been approved, the number of licenses that have been issued, and applications that have been canceled, withdrawn, and denied. And again, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Delinquent, can somebody stay delinquent for, literally until they renew? If they never renew or go on inactive status, will they always stay in the system as delinquent, or do you guys Like after 10 years of somebody being delinquent, do you take them out of our numbers here?
So after 5 years of remaining in delinquent status, they would then become canceled.
5 years. Okay.
If someone has a canceled license, do they have to go through the process all over again, or can they? What is the step for them to take if they decide after 5 years that they don't want to be canceled?
So currently, we have the application pathway for a new license to replace a canceled license, and that would be the pathway that they would have to apply under.
And there is an application for that online.
It's a requested application
Okay.
because the fees vary depending on when their license canceled. So staff generates it based on the request.
That process is a little bit different. That's one of the issues that we brought forward in the Sunset Review Report to address the new licenses to replace canceled licenses. This is applicable to all of our licensure categories. For the RDAs, they have to pay per the requirements in law, pay back all of the renewal fees, complete all of their continuing education. We also make sure that they've completed all of the application requirements as if they were applying for a new license currently. So that process can be cumbersome and expensive. And so we've proposed to bring forward in Sunset Review to amend that law to allow them the option of either choosing to apply for a new license to replace a canceled license, that they have to come, the application actually has to come before the board at a board meeting to become approved, or they have the option of applying via another pathway, which would mean for an RDA, they would just apply for a new license, complete all of their course requirements, their work experience requirements, and complete the combined exam. And then they could become licensed without it having to come before the board and without having to pay the back renewal fees.
Okay, thank you.
Any public comment on agenda item number 6? Okay. We can move to agenda item number 7, update on the development of the dental assisting comprehensive rulemaking proposal.
So in 2010, there was AB 2637, which changed the educational requirements for dental assisting in California. At the time, the board had promulgated one set of regulations that were relevant to just the educational piece for RDA programs, RDA EF programs, the infection control course, the OA permit course, and the dental sedation assistant permit course, with the intention of coming back and having a different regulatory package to address all of the other courses that weren't addressed as part of AB 2637. So as the years passed, we had decided to put together one comprehensive rulemaking as a result of some of the issues that came about from the newest educational regulations. So from 2016 through March of last year, we held stakeholder meetings where the dental assisting council members were present. We had ledge analysts run the meetings with legal counsel to accept essentially preliminary rulemaking comments on what we should change and what we shouldn't change. So since March of last year, we've been dealing with staffing issues relating to our ledge analysts, and we've been working on the continual development of that language to be able to be prepared to bring to the council for consideration. In addition to the educational requirements that the council had reviewed during those stakeholder workshops, we're also amending the language relating to the application and the examination requirements to bring those up to date, and we're having to redevelop the forms and incorporate those by reference. So the overall rulemaking package is about 3 inches thick. It is a work in process. I had initially hoped that we were going to be able to bring that package to the council at this meeting to begin the review process, but at this point, we intend to bring it to the May meeting. We had some unforeseen circumstances. There's been some recent changes in law that have impacted our ability to get the rulemaking done. AB 2138 will impact the way that we put this rulemaking together for the applications and conviction questions that our applicants have to answer. So we have to work with legal counsel to make those adjustments to bring that forward. So right now the plan is to bring it forward to the council meeting in May. I hope to have a robust discussion and have at least a couple weeks for you to have a preliminary review and give us initial feedback in May, with the hope that you will turn around and give us the direction to bring it to the board in August or November to be able to actually initiate the rulemaking and get that going. So I just wanted to provide an update. I had initially hoped we were going to have it here today, but unfortunately it's delayed until May.
If I could just make a comment, the work product of the regulatory workshops is available if you go back to the meetings of the workshop that occurred over the last few years. You can pull up the meeting materials and go through. Now it's in rough form because it's just an edited draft, but you can see what some of the changes were being talked about, and just look through that and maybe envision a clean copy that will be coming. But you can see how it's structured. Really, I think the major changes were more to pit and fissure sealants, coronal polish, radiation safety, and ultrasonic.
Correct.
That were not included in the AB 2637 regs. So most of those programs have the new courses that were addressed with 2637, where we already did educational regs, are pretty well done with some refinements. The other 4 had not really had much done at all. So most of the changes will be to those. And I know one that was of a lot of concern that took, I think, an entire workshop to get through was the radiation safety. And there were some requests for updates that were long overdue, such as being able to do all the radiography digitally for the class and things like that. So those will be forthcoming.
They are, and that was a very complicated section because where it's currently in law, it impacts not only dental assisting, but also dental hygiene and dentistry. And so trying to determine how best to parse that out and make sure that we're consistent across the board has been difficult.
So stay tuned. You will be getting that clean copy.
Get your reading glasses. It's good bedtime material.
Any public comment on item number 7? Okay, we'll move to agenda item number 8, which is public comment on any items not on the agenda.
Hi, my name is Zania Delling, and I'm representing educators that are on this list. I believe that the DAC members were given a sheet that a document that says suggestion for streamlining dental board audits of RDA programs. And there's a list of educators that are on that document that believe that if we could work with the dental board, that these suggestions would be greatly appreciated. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. There are 3 educators that have asked me to comment today on the program reevaluation statement. This message is from Kara Miyazaki as Program Director of Foothill College Dental Assisting Program. I've asked for my statement to be read to the Dental Assisting Council. I have been contacted by several Northern California Dental Assisting Program directors with concerns about the reevaluation or audit process. As a CODA-approved program, we receive notices of upcoming site visits 1 year in advance. In addition, CODA recommends to begin completion of self-study documents 12 to 14 months in advance. The Dental Board reevaluation of DA programs is giving 6 weeks advance notice, which is not enough time to plan and write comprehensive document when many directors have minimal reassigned time and also have a heavy teaching load. I have also heard directly from directors about repetitive reporting and difficulty with existing forms. I'm aware the board is considering a workshop for the program directors to understand the process and to ask questions. However, the issues that I have heard about cannot be resolved by having a workshop to understand a process which is broken. I feel the primary focus for dental assisting should be to revise the educational regulatory language first and then reevaluate the programs based on the revised document. I have a difficult time understanding why programs are being evaluated on existing regulations that have been identified as needing an update. I'm asking for the DAC to suspend the reevaluation process and focus on approving the revised educational regulatory language. If that isn't possible, I would like to request that DAC form a subcommittee to assess the reevaluation process and consider making changes with input from program directors. With deepest respect, Kara Miyazaki, Foothill College. Dr. Hilshoff has asked me to read this to the dental board, or to the DAC. Thank you so much for putting the documents together and being willing to represent us to this very important meeting. I have these recommendations. The PDF reevaluation application to be submitted to the board needs to be formatted in such a way to allow programs to plug in their data and responses after each question. At the moment, this is not possible, making it more consuming and confusing for both programs and evaluators as they prepare or read through the document. 2, there needs to be consistency in the language. For example, within the same document, the infection control policy is called Infection Control Protocol and a sepsis protocol. Again, this is just one example of language inconsistency. 3, privacy concerns. This really should be number 1 on the list of concerns. I would like to know what is the board doing with all the documents we're submitting after they are done with the evaluation process. The reevaluation documents are asking for CVs and resumes, so there is sensitive faculty information on these documents, addresses, phone numbers, etc. Since the board and the evaluators do not sign a confidentiality agreement with the schools, I'm wondering what happens with the vast amount of information we are asked to submit. Is this information used only for the purpose of evaluating the programs? How is all this paperwork stored? Are copies shredded after being evaluated? 4, the application document needs some additional edits with regards to grammar, requesting the same documentation twice and having contradictory or confusing directions. I just submitted my reevaluation documents, 27 binders, and this is still painfully fresh in my mind. I do agree that 6 weeks does not give the programs enough time to prepare, print, and submit all the documents requested for the reevaluation. I hope this helps Dr. Hilshoff with Marine Valley College. And then the last one I need to read is from Diana Harshman. Good morning, Dental Board, and thank you for your service, and DAC. We are in the process of an audit right now. We were given 30 days initially to complete the audit. Then I was able to get a 3-month extension only to have it come back with deficiencies, in which the supposed missing items were there, or it was missing a word. I'm currently completing these portions and find it very frustrating. It has taken away from student learning and caused me endless hours of stress, only to have them tell me it isn't correct even though they approved it initially. I want to support the board, but find their tactics to be not sympathetic to the programs and the students in which we are trying to educate. So she agrees 100% with the suggestions for streamlining the dental board audit of RDA programs. Diana Harshman with Grossmont Health Occupational Center. Thank you so much.
Okay, DAC members, because this wasn't on the agenda, it will be determined. Typically, the executive officer works with the chair of the committee to determine if it's going to be agendized at a future meeting and when that will occur, so we can have that conversation, right?
Just a point of information there. So is there an upcoming workshop for program directors?
This spring.
I think that might be helpful at this point. A stakeholder meeting to kind of iron some of these things out that I think everybody's trying to do the right thing. It sounds like it just, maybe there could be a discussion in that forum rather than at a meeting. It would allow a little broader discussion.
I agree.
Would DAC members be included in that?
We can discuss that. It wouldn't be we hadn't envisioned it as a dental assistant council meeting as much of a staff-driven workshop to explain the process and perhaps have a subject matter expert there to address questions.
What I'd recommend is that those comments be placed under agenda item 10. Because typically, when there is a commenter during public comment on items not on the agenda, board members, committee members, council members do not respond to the questions. So now you can just go ahead and place it under item 10.
Okay. I'd like,
But we still have public comment on number 8, I think.
Thank you.
Point of order. I think that she should say at this point that those comments will be placed under item 10.
Which
and
comment?
then
Dr. Witcher's comment?
Yes, because he's a council member.
Okay.
And
I'd like to place Dr. Witcher's comments on item number 8 down to item number 10.
thank you.
Thank you. Claudia Pohl, CDAA. A couple of things. First, I'd like clarity because I am confused as to why Ms. Delling was not able to give her comments under agenda item 5 or 6, which is dealing with reevaluations of the program. I'm not clear on why that was not allowed.
It was an update regarding the application process and reevaluations. It was only an update. It was not agendized for a full discussion regarding those items that the commenter was going to make, those comments that she was going to make. What I'd recommend is if you would like that be placed as an item on the agenda, as the executive officer stated that she works with individuals who want certain things placed on the agenda to determine whether or not they're going to be placed on the agenda.
Inherently in an update, is there not discussion about the activity? And some of the DAC was asking questions about it, that process as well.
With all due respect, this is public comment on items not on the agenda. It's not supposed to be a back and forth.
Okay.
Thank you.
CDA would support the comments of the educators, and I know we're in a difficult place because we're working on a ledge package that involves applications, but I would encourage a focus group or something. I don't know, the cart before the horse, but something needs to be done to help this process go a little bit smoother. And I know that there are inconsistencies in the application and the deficiencies, so I know some programs have gotten some deficiencies for which they are not asked for on the application. So there are multiple things for which these need to be addressed. If I may, may I make another comment not on the agenda?
Yes.
Different topic?
Yes.
I have a question. Again, I know you can't, so I'll state it as a question, but curious why why something is not on the Dental Assisting Council agenda that affects dental assisting that's being brought up at the board meeting. So I don't know how things get put on the agenda, but I would have thought, and I would encourage in the future, that the dental board is going to be discussing continuing education changes that affects dental assistants. And so I would have thought and would like to have seen the Dental Assisting Council address that. So that would be my comment.
I do want to ask for one more request. Sarah, what the educators are asking that if we have these workshops, that we also have them north and south, if we have these workshops. If you guys would please consider that. Thank you.
I don't know at what point we clarify for those here how something gets on the agenda. The idea is to give staff a heads up prior to meetings if you have issues or questions, and to start communicating with me and Sarah about what the issues may be. Otherwise, we tend to only give an update because we haven't been notified that there are any significant issues that need to be discussed. So, I mean, it would be, I would strongly suggest that stakeholders who have any issues that they would like to see on a future agenda, start to do the background work, if you will, to bring it to our attention so that we can make sure that this process is appropriate. I'm you know, some of the people that have been coming up and speaking to this issue have been sitting in this room for a while, and so I guess there's still confusion about how something does get on the agenda. Updates are intended to be updates. We would normally then say a discussion and possible action if something else needs to be discussed on that issue. But the key is to bring it up ahead of time so that these issues can be handled in a timely way. I mean, staff is interested in streamlining things. We're not in a position to be punitive toward any programs, but the DAC has also seen what our pass rate is on some of these examinations, and the question is, how is that happening? So granted, the board hasn't been doing, we're in the mode now that we're going to be evaluating programs, which we haven't been able to do over the last 10 years. So we're moving forward, but we're not going to be punitive in that arena. So this is just a discussion about process. Anybody wanting to bring an item forward should be contacting us. This is DAC members too. I mean, if you feel you want an issue, bring it up, and we'll make sure that we can agendize it in a way that we can have a robust discussion about it.
Can I ask a question? What's the timeline? How soon do you need it
Sooner
on
the
the
better.
agenda?
The sooner the
What's
better.
the latest you can have it put on the agenda?
You know, that's the tough thing, because we start preparing the next meeting right after one meeting. So next week we're starting to put together the May meeting.
We've actually personally had meetings with stakeholders where we've explained the process, and we ask for at least a 3-month lead time. As soon as one meeting ends, let us know as soon as possible, but really no later than 30 days prior to a board meeting.
Well, a lot of times the agenda doesn't even go out to the public except a week or two before the meeting, and so that's when we find out what is on the agenda, and that's when they're able to find out what's on the agenda so that they know, well, we want to have a discussion about that. So is that enough time to be able to say, can we add a discussion to that point?
No, not after the agenda is
So
published.
we
hard.
we have to post the agenda 10 days prior to a board meeting, but the agenda is in development. Really, after
Constantly.
once one board meeting ends, it's in development moving forward, and so there is a review process that we have to go through,
Okay.
and work with our legal counsel and make sure that our chairs and our president are on board with what we have on the agenda. So really, the sooner the better. A lot of times when people request agenda items, we work with them to make sure that we have the materials outlined that they want to include in the board meeting packet, that we've outlined the background research on it as well, to make sure that we're prepared to discuss it, and that the council or the board members have everything they need to be able to make a decision.
Don Klein, Citrus College, RDA Program Director. I just want to make a comment that the educators did attempt to get together with the DAC or with representation from the board so that we can have this discussion prior to this meeting and to be able to get it onto the agenda. Unfortunately, timing was bad and wasn't able to be attended, which I understand it was Sunset Review things, but
we were invited to a meeting in March, and we were unable to attend. We did have a meeting with representation in early November and explained the process for requesting agenda items, and to my knowledge, we have not received a requested agenda item. So
the process was probably wrong on our part. I get that. My only statement is I am willing to host the meeting to be able to have this discussion as you were talking about, so we can reset that up and work on that.
Thank you.
Any further comments? Okay. So we'll move to item number 9, future agenda items.
This would be an opportunity for those who desire an item be placed on a future agenda item to come forward, and just indicate what that would be.
My name is Zania Delling, and I would like to place on the future agenda item suggestions for streamlining the board's audit for RDA programs. Thank you.
We don't need to vote on that, right? That's okay. I'm just making sure.
You're doing an excellent job, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
So can I ask a question then, being new, the process too? So when Sarah said in May of 2018 or 19, we're going to be doing the review of the rulemaking, is there going to be discussion on that, or do we need to agendaize that now?
That's the intention, to have discussion and possible action regarding that language.
Okay,
Yes.
wanted to make sure, so that we can discuss it when it comes up on the agenda. Okay.
Okay, we'll move to our last item. Council members' comments on items not on the agenda.
And we'll note that Dr. Witcher's comments are going to be
Put
in
on
that
the
area.
number 10.
And I hope we hire a secretary before, so that I don't have to do the minutes.
There was some discussion about perhaps doing a workshop, or Dr. Witcher mentioned doing something as well. So is there something that we can do in the near future, set something up so that some educators can come, DAC can come and have a discussion about this? Is that something that we can?
Wait, we're on number 10, council member comments on items not
I'm
on the
so
agenda.
sorry. I'm so
So
sorry.
why don't you have that sidebar with Sarah?
You got it. Got it.
We're good. Sorry, I stepped on your turf. Sorry.
Sorry.
Okay, if there's no further comment, our meeting is adjourned.
Good job.
Okay.
And sorry you didn't know that you would be jumping in, but you did.
We can come back to order. The next agenda item is number 8, Moldova Faculty School of Dentistry. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's back up and take first the dental assisting report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was asked by the dental assisting chair, Ms. Rodriguez, to give the report since this is her first meeting, and the report came up immediately after the meeting, so I'll stand in for her just this once. And she did a great job running the meeting. Thank you. So Dental Assisting Council meeting was called to order. We had a quorum. We approved the meeting minutes of the November 29, 2018 meeting. We held an election, and elected a chair and vice chair with Jennifer Rodriguez, chair of the Dental Assisting Council, and Rosalinda Halage, vice chair. We received updates on a number of activities related to the dental assisting program and courses. Most notably, the applications and program reevaluations. We heard an update on examination statistics. The pass rates remain pretty much the same in the 54% pass rate for the combined RDA written and law and ethics exam. The RDA EF statistics are available in the meeting materials, so I won't repeat them here. The clinical practical examination statistics are also available, as are the ancillary courses such as the OA and the DSA. We then heard an update on dental licensing statistics, including RDA, RDA EF, OA, and DSA. Next, we received an update from Ms. Wallace on development of the Dental Assisting Comprehensive Rulemaking Package. This was developed between 2016 and 2018 during a series of workshops, and has been in development for some time, and we anticipate having a proposal for the May meeting. So everybody should be looking, hopefully we'll have that ready. It is, as she indicated, it's quite an extensive document. It brings all the educational regs for all the dental assisting programs into conformity. Next, we heard public comment for items not on the agenda. Stakeholders commented that they had concerns regarding the program and course reapproval process and wish to take those up at a future meeting and ask this be agendized for a future meeting. So that was taken up under number 9. Stakeholders were encouraged to get their proposals for future agenda, their requests for future agenda items in at least 3 months in advance because preparation of the agenda for the meeting starts immediately after the existing meeting. So just a procedural note, and that items that are not agendized for discussion and possible action can't be discussed at the meeting. They have to be agendized appropriately for discussion. However, people can bring public comments for items not on the agenda. Next, we heard council member comments for items not on the agenda. I made the comment in follow-up to Ms. Wallace' remark that there would be a possible future workshop for program directors regarding the program reapproval process, and I mentioned that might be a good opportunity to work out some of the issues related. And Ms. Fisher also made the comment that even though a program might be found to have deficiencies during the process, their graduates would remain eligible to take exams and receive licensure, and the intent is not to penalize the programs or deny them approval, but to make sure that they are brought up to date and comply, with the requirements. Following that, there was no additional public comment or council member comments, and so the meeting was adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that report. And congratulations to the new officers. So the next agenda item is agenda item 8. And I'd like to ask if there are any representatives from Moldova USA here today. Okay, seeing none, this is how we will proceed. We will give everyone who wishes an opportunity to raise your questions so that we can record them and get them back to the university for their response. And before we do that, I would like to ask Ms. Fisher if she has additional comments.
Thank you, Ms. Burton. So staff is passing out a letter that we recently received from the rector of the University of Moldova in Moldova. And I had emails back and forth with them. They had been invited to attend this meeting, but as we were going through the responses, I sent him an email and asked him if it would be more convenient for them to come to the May meeting. These are the faculty at the University of Moldova. At the same time, I sent an email to Senator Polanco, the representative of Moldova, asking him if he was planning to attend this meeting, and I got no response. I had also asked the rector to ensure that the officers of Moldova USA would be in attendance at this meeting, and he responded that he would do the best he can. So the letter that's being passed out to board members was essentially emailed to you early on. You were asked to review it, but here's a hard copy for you to take a look at. Copies of the letter should be at the back for those of you interested in looking at it. So that's the preface of essentially now how we're going to take up where we left off at the last meeting. So if you would like me to continue, I will. Or are you going to?
Unless you want to
just go through this?
Okay.
Okay. So at the November meeting, you will recall that we had a robust discussion about the relationship that had been brought to our attention between the university in Moldova and Moldova USA. At that meeting, the board essentially established 12 questions that they wanted submitted to the university in Moldova to be able to respond to. They did so, and what is in your packet is their response. I reviewed the material myself and felt that basically the letter was responsive in most ways, but essentially in other ways, they said that they had no knowledge of certain things, as, for instance, how the officers of Moldova USA are compensated. They also did not have any tax information relating to Moldova USA, and said that that was not available. That was not available to them. In answer to the board's question as to why wasn't this relationship essentially mentioned in any way, the response was simply, you didn't ask. So just moving forward, I want to emphasize that though the site team did not have this information, they did continue to do an evaluation of the facilities where the education is taking place, the curriculum, and Dr. Morrow can speak to that at some point. So whether the educational requirements meet the standards is one question. But I think that the question that we're looking at now is whether there's been a violation of CCNR's 1024.8 relating to how much control Moldova USA actually has over the program of the university in Moldova. So at that, how did you want to proceed?
First, I want to reiterate to board members, I know that you got this in writing, but we've not had an opportunity to publicly raise any additional questions that we have. And so what we'd like to do is record those questions and concerns that you have, that you feel that the university still needs to respond to. And my goal would be to just do that and not do any other motions, but just to get your questions on record and have an opportunity for the university to respond to that. So with that, I'm going to ask Dr. Morrow first if you have something that you want to add, and then we will, we won't go around, but for board members who have questions, if you will just indicate, we'll get to everybody in time.
Thank you. First of all, I want to try to separate myself as well as encourage you to separate the California Code of Regulations 1024, which are the institutional standards for the educational process itself. And then CCNR Code of Regulations 1024.8, which addresses the issue of any changes that are made to an educational program after the board has approved it. And those are, I think, are the two main issues that we need to focus on. The educational standards have been met, and the board has approved them, and the board granted full approval of the University of Moldova. And after that approval was granted, then we became aware of some changes that had been made. And I think those changes that have been made are what we need to be concerned about. Not the quality of the educational process, that has already, and the outcome of that educational process, that has already been determined. But we are looking at a contractual agreement, a collaborative agreement between two corporations, the university and a corporation, that according to the rector's letter, it is common practice for the university to employ institutions or organizations in other countries to do marketing for the university, and that certainly is acceptable. However, the Code of Regulations 1024.8 addresses issues of control, change, control, influence. Are these changes in any way affecting the control of the program, any influence as to the program? And it is my opinion, and I'm not a legal mind, but we have one sitting right to my left here, that the collaborative agreement in a number of ways affects not only control, but definitely influence of the University of Moldova US Incorporated over the University of Moldova, the parent university, and its educational programs. And that's where my concerns are primarily focused, is there evidence to support that this collaborative agreement allows for either control and or influence of the educational program of the University of Moldova. This collaborative agreement was signed after the board had granted full approval of the educational program of the University of Moldova. So this collaborative agreement represents some changes that have been made subsequent to or after the board had approved the program. Now, you've all had a chance to read the collaborative agreement, and I think this is the time for us to ask Spencer to help us understand this from a standpoint of, does this agreement comply or not comply with Regulation 1024.8? Is there issues of noncompliance? Are there issues of noncompliance?
On its face, it does seem to me that there is adequate evidence to indicate that there is a shift in control based on a number of provisions that I outlined in the memorandum that each of you have, and those provisions are numerous. So I believe, Dr. Morrow, that your question would therefore be, is there evidence to support that the collaborative agreement indicates that there has been a shift in control?
Yes.
Thank
you. And or influence. I mean, there's a difference between outright control and influencing of decisions. Because the regulation states influence as well as control.
Well, 1024.8 provides that the board shall be notified of a change in the following: location, mission, purposes, or objectives, change of name, or shift or change in control. And then it goes on to define what that is.
Yes, and a shift or change in control means any change in the power or authority to manage, direct, or influence the conduct, policies, and affairs of an institution. That's the definition of shift in control or change in control. Includes influencing those decisions.
Is there anything else that you would like me to address, Dr. Moore?
Well, I mean, I think we could go through the document, but I almost think that's a waste of time unless members of the board have some specific questions about it. But as you said, and my reading of it as well, there are a number of provisions in this collaborative agreement that, in my opinion, either relinquish or change control or certainly definitely influence decisions that are made by the parent university.
It is my opinion that since the initial letter and the second indicate that Moldova USA was only employed, so to speak, by contract to conduct marketing, the school should be given an opportunity to address how marketing relates to what is contained within the collaboration agreement.
I agree. The way that I read this agreement goes way beyond aspects of marketing.
That's correct.
Madam President, may I comment? I would just like to make the comment to direct the board members to page 5 of the memo, which starts this off, because the third bullet essentially in the agreement talks about a training program approved by the dental board for students in the 4th and 5th year, where studies are going to be conducted in English, who agree to pay an additional fee. And to my knowledge, that was never discussed. Essentially, they're using the board as having had knowledge of that program. And until we received this documentation, we did not know that that program existed. So as you're looking through the agreement, there are 3 bullets under the first general provisions, which talks about 3 different programs. The first program is the 5-year program that the board did review the curriculum and the program and approved. The school does have the ability to move forward and notify the board that in addition to that, they're going to be developing a 2-year IDP program. We asked them about that, and they said that essentially they explained how that process was going to be. But this third bullet, until we received this information, we had not been notified of this new pathway or program that they have that somebody's established, which is very different from what the site team reviewed.
Okay, so we will add that as a second question. So let's open this up. Who's ready?
Dr. Chan, Dr. Witcher.
Okay.
First of all, can I ask the staff, before I ask the question of the collaboration question, is there a regulatory overlay with facilities outside of an educational facility within California that allows the performance of dentistry on the public of non-degreed persons, students? And what I'm specifically asking about is what is the model that's used here, and if there's a regulatory overlay of, for example, UCLA operating a clinic in a different part of LA, outside of the university itself. What's the model? And do we have a regulatory overlay on that?
Yes.
And is that agreement typically with the university itself, or is it through a third party?
We issue an extramural facilities permit
To the university,
to the university,
but not a third party?
not a third party.
Okay. Then the question is, when we look at page 3 on sections
Of
2
the memo?
of the memo. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, this memo. So 2.18, 2.19, 2.111 talks about Moldova, USA opening a satellite dental practice, and the term is where it shall perform practical training of students. How does that, I'm not sure how to frame the question, because you have a third party doing this, and it also extends beyond marketing, since it seems like you're training them. So I'm not sure how to frame the question on here, but it seems like there's multiple pieces here. I need help, Spencer.
I believe your question would be, does the authorization by Moldova to allow students to be trained in a satellite dental clinic in the state of California, and would it fall under CCR section 1025, an extramural dental facility, where they would be required to obtain a certificate from the board. Is that basically it?
That's multiple layers of it, yes.
Thank you.
No.
Okay.
Does the authorization of Moldova allow students to be trained in?
Does the authorization by Moldova to allow Moldova USA to open a satellite clinic to train students in the state of California qualify as an extramural dental facility under CCR section 1025, whereas they would be required to obtain a certificate from the board?
And the subset of that, it seems to be a contradiction between simply marketing and now you're actually allowing practical trainings, the term that they use.
I absolutely agree with you 100%. And that is why they should be required to respond to that question.
Okay, thank you.
I have a few questions.
Okay.
First of all, there are references in here to a specific curriculum approved by the dental board. I don't recall that we approved a different curriculum. I mean, what did the site visit look at in terms of the curriculum?
The site visit and evaluation of the educational program at the University of Moldova, when it was conducted, had access to and viewed the curriculum that was conducted at the University of Moldova in Chisinau in the Republic of Moldova. The entire educational program was conducted within the university and within the university's clinics. There was no portion of the curriculum that allowed for or called for educational processes, either didactic or clinical, outside of the university's umbrella, so to speak, physical umbrella. In my opinion, having been involved in accreditation issues with dental education, let's say sending out students for clinical experiences in community clinics certainly requires a change in curriculum, and it certainly requires, in California anyway, a permit from the board for that to happen. Changing the curriculum requires prior notification to the board and getting approval to change that curriculum. We have not received any requests from University of Moldova, either the parent university or University of Moldova US, for any application for a change in their curriculum or a change in their program.
Dr. Witcher, if you're looking at a specific item number, could you preface your comments? Could you preface that so that board members can follow where you are specifically? Same for all board members. If you have an issue that's related to one of the specific items, if you could essentially notice that before you begin your comment, I think it'll be easier for people to follow. Thank you.
Does anybody want specific references? Because what I mentioned is mentioned throughout the document. It's mentioned in 2.1.5, 2.1.6, 2.1.8, 2.1.9, 2.1.10, 11. It's pretty much in every section.
Thank you.
There is a specific curriculum or a program, I guess, as approved by the Dental Board of California, which to me was distinct. My understanding was the approval was to the University of Moldova's curriculum, and that I believe is set by their Ministry of Health. Just to follow up on that, I think if the relationship between University of Moldova USA and the university was as described in the rector's original letter, I don't think that would really be a problem, in that that indicates they're only doing marketing and serving as a facility for exams to be conducted by USA, things like that. The entrance process, the examinations and all that are developed and administered by USA or University of Moldova or their delegates. So I think that the thing that bothers me a little bit is the collaboration agreement really goes way beyond anything that the rector says they're doing. And so I think, very broadly, I think we would like a response to that. And then the final question I have is, what effect does the collaboration agreement have on compliance with the institutional standards? And that I found much harder to grapple with. I mean, theoretically, if they were to apply for and receive a permit to operate an extramural facility, it was University of Moldova faculty who was there overseeing the students. The guidelines for an extramural facility are fairly broad. So theoretically, it could be okay. But, again, it's really kind of hard for me to tell, because this is not what we approved, but how does it materially change compliance with the institutional standards, or does it, would I think be the core question.
As far as extramural facilities are concerned, for clinical experiences for students in California, that permit is required, obviously, to the board, and also the supervision of those students must be done by faculty of that institution, of that school. Now, as I read the collaborative agreement, University of Moldova US Incorporated is responsible for the expenses of traveling and training those individuals to provide supervision in the clinic in the United States or in California. So there's an involvement there, there's a financial involvement of the University of Moldova US Incorporated, which is requiring them to pay the expenses of travel back and forth and also the expenses of training the faculty to supervise the students in the clinic in California. Certainly a level of influence, if not a change. So, that's a concern, that they must be supervised by the faculty of the school that they are coming from in that extramural facility.
Through the chair, if I could just comment on 2.1.11, it actually goes a little farther. It says USA shall ensure the necessary training of teaching staff of UMSF on the USA territory. It almost sounds like they're doing the training. So that, I think, would be a significant change. Right?
Just a minute.
Sure.
We've got Dr. Lane first.
Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, while reading this item, it really bothers me the fact that the school said we didn't ask about the USA Moldova. If they already knew, or if the collaboration was already in existence at that time, it was their job to disclose to the site team. And not only that, that should have been put in the application. And I do think that the collaboration did exist at that time, and they chose not to disclose on the application and also to the site visit. The application is basically invalid and incomplete, in my opinion. Okay, and that's just my opinion. So I think that's something that should be looked into and investigated, whether or not the collaboration did exist at the time of application and also at the time of site visit that was intentionally not disclosed. That's number one. Number two, I have a different read from probably most of you. When I'm reading this, it seems to me like USA Moldova is actually an additional campus and not extramural training site. If you read it again and again, it says that USA Moldova actually will build a satellite dental clinic that will be training the students. It doesn't say for just rotations. It doesn't say for a number of weeks like externship rotations, like in R. So what this means is that the students from the school could be spending the last 2 years at this satellite clinic. So basically, it's really a second campus, if not a separate dental school altogether under the Moldova school. I mean, I had to read it again and again and again in order to understand what the intention is. And I believe that, in my opinion, again, that is the intention. And that is to send the USA students, the students that are accepted by USA Moldova, that they call themselves a Dental Council of California, to be able to come to California and probably spend the last 2 years in California. That is one thing that they have not fully disclosed, if my understanding is correct.
Okay,
So I'm just saying, the curriculum changed, and now if they're talking about physical location change, we have a bigger issue here, and it's not just the
okay, so
satellite
my
clinic.
question is your question then, what specifically could students spend the last 2 years at a satellite location? Is that your specific question?
Yes.
Okay.
And so, so basically, you're talking about adding a campus to the
Possible.
school.
That's not clear. That's a possibility.
It's not clear.
But it isn't clear.
Okay. So again, this is not full disclosure. It's not full explanation of what the intent is.
Okay.
And so, there are more questions, than answers from what I'm reading. So I think, and they keep saying that they don't have any control over USA Moldova. They keep saying all these things, but then at the same time, in 2.1.13, it says, together, USMF and UMUSA will develop and approve forms of documents necessary, blah, blah, blah. So it's like you don't have control, but then you have control. You don't own it, but then you own it. So you see what I'm saying? I mean, that's the theme throughout the whole response. So I'm very, very concerned about it. I'll stop there.
Okay. Let's do it.
I would just echo that concern, and it's very difficult for me to read the material that we've been given and try to come to a conclusion when the campus that's described and the purposes for that campus are so vague that there's not a whole lot to work with. And so to read into is difficult because I don't want to go down the wrong path here. But if they're not going to be forthright, if they can't tell us what the purpose is for that location and what's going to be going on there, we're left without enough information to really respond. That's a concern.
So point of information again for staff. In the model of extramural programs here in California, faculty that attends and are the attendings at the extramural programs, do they have to be licensed? Our primary purpose is protecting the public. That's our way of getting our hands on someone if something happens. Is that the model that there's a question if they're bringing people from Moldova and they're not licensed? There's another gap here. And I have to disagree with Dr. Lay. I see daggers before me. The language of 2.18 says, USMF shall have no objection against UMUSA for opening a satellite practice in California where it shall perform practical training admitted to the programs, da, da, da. It's not setting up a campus here. It's asking that a third party do that, or allowing a third party to do this. That's a different model. And then the jurisdiction things come into play too.
To respond to your question about what the model is for extramural facilities, Dr. Morrow, are you comfortable with explaining how it's done at Loma Linda?
Well, sure, but I will do that. Let me just first respond from a standpoint of Business and Profession Code Section 1626C. This is a code section that has to do with exemptions for licensure. Okay? It is unlawful for any person to engage in the practice of dentistry in the state, either privately or as an employee of a government agency, unless the person has a valid unexpired license or special permit from the board. The following practices, acts, and so forth, however, are exempt. C, the practice of dentistry by licensed dentists of other states or countries while appearing and operating as bona fide clinicians or instructors in dental colleges approved by the Dental Board of California. So therefore, my interpretation of this, and Spencer, correct me if I'm wrong, if the University of Moldova opens a satellite campus in California and they have faculty members that are licensed in Moldova, they could serve as attending faculty for the training in that campus in California without a California license, as long as they had a license in another country. That doesn't even have to be a license in Moldova. Just a license in another country allows a person, a dentist, to hold a faculty position in a dental school in California.
I don't think I read it that way. C, 16.20.
I agree. However, the satellite clinic is not a school.
Right.
That's the difference. It would be regarded as an extramural facility.
That would obviously depend on how, if that happens, that would depend on how we would classify it, how the board would classify it. If the university says that's a satellite campus, do we deny them the right to have a satellite campus in another country other than Moldova?
And that was my point. And that is, if it's a satellite clinic.
They must hold a California license.
Yes, thank you.
That's right. To teach there. However, if it's an extramural facility, then they would have to hold a California license.
Yes.
That's the difference.
But if it was not an extramural facility, if it was a campus, then they would have to have a license, but not necessarily a California license.
You are correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
I have a question. Back to you.
Yes, I'll be interested to know, okay, our job is to protect the public. And our job is also to bring up the standard of dentistry in California. So the arrangement of Moldova, this school, can anyone tell me the ranking of this school in the world? In the education background and the school, because I never heard of this school before. Sorry about that, because of I'm a new member. So in a way, a new member. Okay, so basically, what's the ranking of this school?
I don't think we know the ranking, Dr. Yu. I think we know that it's a government school.
It's a government school. Okay. And then from the previous marketing material that we read, okay, so they emphasize that to get into the program, they don't need to worry about DAT or SAT. So is this the philosophy of the school or just the marketing material? So that's my second question. Okay. And then the student will intend to bring to California to practice in the extramural clinic or whatever. So eventually they will become part of the California dentists. So is this an indication of the standard of our education, dental education is reversing or going downhill? I need to know to protect the public.
I don't have the answers to those questions. All I know is that according to our current code section, the Dental Board of California is required to accept and process applications from any dental school in the world for approval of that dental education to meet the licensing requirements for the state of California. It says we have to accept and process those applications and determine if that education is equivalent to an education, a dental education in the United States. We have no choice but to process those applications as it stands now. Is that correct? Okay. So unless or until that is changed, we have that statutory obligation and requirement to accept and to process applications from any dental school in the world. That's a very time-consuming process for both the board members that are involved in that and for board staff. I think we would all be very concerned if we actually logged all the hours of time that has been spent in both the De La Salle and the Moldova school approval process. And we put some dollars to that, and it would be very frightening. But that's the way it is. And we don't have any choice except to go there at the present time.
Can I ask for another point of information? And through the chair, the approval of the educational equivalent is for how long, Dr. Moore?
By code, it's for 7 years.
7 years. If we look at on page 3 of 6, 2.1.2, the exclusive privilege of UMUSA to represent USMF on the U.S. territory and other countries shall last only for the validity period of this agreement, which was, I believe, 3 years. There's a difference in how long that educational approval is, and yet this third party, so far, according to this collaboration agreement, is only 3 years. So anything that cascades from there, for example, extramural questions, there's a gap after this collaboration ceases to exist.
So is that the question? Is the question how long is this agreement for? Oh, sorry. So is that your question? How long is this agreement?
No, the agreement is for 3 years, and yet the approval for the educational equivalence for the university is 7 years. So once this collaboration ceases, then as a third party, it's talking about operating these satellites. There's another gap here.
So I guess to put it into a question, if, and I don't know if I can do this, so if based on the collaboration agreement, the third party perhaps goes away after 3 years, yet the school's approval is for 7, what happens with the gap of perhaps students who have been involved in this other clinical site? Is that what you're talking about?
Okay. I thought I read that there was a 30-day cancellation period somewhere. Not in these, I didn't see it here, but in the document. I thought that's what I read. Am I incorrect?
I'm sorry, I
It
didn't
said
hear your
30-day
question.
cancellation between your collaboration. That's what I had read somewhere in the documents. I don't see it here, but I remember receiving something.
I don't.
Madam President.
It's not here, but
I don't.
I'm going to look for it. I know I saw it somewhere.
Madam President,
Yes.
I suggest that we consider having staff write a letter to the rector of the University of Moldova. In the rector's letter, he stated that it is common practice for the university to engage the services of organizations in various countries for the purpose of marketing. I would like the rector to explain item by item in the collaborative agreement how that specific item relates to marketing. And I would hope
Item by item explanation.
Thank you.
In the agreement of how each item relates to marketing.
Yes, since the purpose of the relationship is for marketing, as stated by the rector in his letter.
Okay.
And I have met the rector. I would like to have him come and meet us himself. He would have to have an interpreter because he did not at the time that we did our site visit speak English, but we did have conversations that were translated. Now, obviously, it's up to him as to whether he comes or whether he sends a representative.
And that's for the May meeting?
Yes.
I anticipate that he'll be sending Professor Gavriliuk
Yes, I know him too.
and Dean Ciobanu.
They have reasonable English skills, but I still think we would need to have an interpreter.
Is Dr. Plesh capable of interpreting?
Yes.
Dr. Plesh was a member of our site team, so
Dr. Plesh is a prosthodontist who is faculty member at UC San Francisco. She was born and raised in Romania. Romanian is her native language. And she was excellent in assisting us at the site visit with her language skills.
Okay. So I think you're next.
So I respect all the work that Dr. Morrow has done in regards to the site visit. And I think my issue is not with the university, but with Moldova, USA. I'm sure they're very qualified to teach there. Now, my original question was the tax compensation. I needed the tax information of Moldova, USA. I think that's within our means to look at that, who the founders are, when this was kind of thought up, The only thing we got was from the 2017 September filing. That was the only thing, right? And the directors were 2 dentists and a retired senator. Now, I think our issue is to protect the public. Now, if people of the United States or people of California are going to these schools, we have to protect them. So I would like to know where the money's going to, since we know there's a disparity between the actual tuition and how much Moldova USA charges. From that amount, how much is Moldova University receiving? According to the letter, there was 131 students, 53 rejected, which by simple math, 78 students were accepted. How much of that money went there? How much of the money stayed here? I think we should know that. I think there's a lot of unanswered questions in regards to who put this together, when it was put together, and where the money's going to. But I have no problems with the university, just how things and funds are being appropriated, who's making the money, where's it going to, and where we're going to be going from there. And I want to know if at any point was a dentist involved with some idea that would use us as a endorsement for a private company. And that's my feeling.
I heard a couple of questions there. Okay.
I need some clarification. Are you suggesting that board staff send a letter to Moldova USA, or the letter go to the University?
It should go to the USA.
The Moldova USA is not in the jurisdiction of the board, so therefore would not be required to answer any of the questions.
I'm sorry. Okay.
So it would have to be directed at Moldova.
That's fine. I mean, I just want answers, that's all.
So I heard a couple of questions there. One was about the number of students.
Students that are in progress and how many have graduated that are in this program, because obviously we don't need to know the rest of that.
So how many students?
From that were referred by Moldova USA. And how many of them have finished?
If I might add, Ross, since the program just started and it's a 5-year program, none of them that have been accepted will have finished yet. They will not finish until 5 years after matriculation. So if there are some students that have come through the Moldova USA Incorporated process, they will not complete the program for 5 years after they started it. So at this point, we have no knowledge as to how they have done in the program because they haven't completed it.
How about a progress report of how far along they are?
At this point, they're doing basic sciences. So if you want grades, they're not into clinical experiences at this point in their curriculum.
Okay, so their curriculum then is 2 years didactic before clinical? It's different than, a U.S. school, right? So,
yeah.
UOP, Loma Linda.
Well, it's a 5-year program, so it's usually 2 years, primarily concentrated on basic sciences, and then 3 years clinical sciences and ethics and that type of thing.
So, correct me, I think that what you may be referring to is the letter the January 14th letter. And on page 4, they say that to date 131 students have applied through the University of Moldova, USA, and 53 have been denied.
Yes.
And so I think you want some clarification. Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
For of those students that, of exactly how many, they say that 53 have been denied, but they don't say that the rest of them were accepted.
Correct. And
And if they were accepted, where are they in the process now? Is that the
Yes,
question?
yes.
Okay. Not necessarily. Dr. Larry,
Yeah,
did
yeah,
you?
I just wanted to add a question of the intention and the need for the satellite program. It does say here, for the accumulation of practical experience for students enrolled in the program. At what time was the intention? Was it during their school year, during the 5 years, or was it for an international program? What was the intention of setting up a satellite clinic?
I'm sorry, what section are you referring to?
On page 3 of 6, 218. There's no objection, shall have no objection against USA opening a satellite practice in California. What was the intention of this practice? What was it for the regular school years or the 5 years? Was it for an international program? Well, what is the intention of this program? It says here that the purpose would be for accumulation of practical experience. Was this after school, before school, in summer? When is this supposed to be happening? I just don't understand why the need is for this program. But, when they're there at school already, I mean, I don't understand what it's for.
Madam President,
Yes.
another question that I would like answer to, if possible. In the document entitled Acknowledgements and Disclosures of Enrolling in the School of Dentistry of Nicolae Tesimatanu, or USMF, this is a 2-page document that the second page is required for the student or applicant to sign, and also representative from University of Moldova, USA, and also a representative of University of Moldova Parent University. What does this document have to do with marketing?
Are you referring to the secondary level? Secondary level? Okay. Okay.
Oh, and also, Madam President, just for informational purposes, and I know this came up a few minutes ago, according to documents that we have received, the incorporation of University of Moldova US Incorporated was incorporated in 2014. This is prior to the board approving, doing the site visit, and prior to the board approving the educational program at the University of Moldova. So University of Moldova, USA became incorporated in 2014. The site visit took place in December and in October of 2016.
Is that a correction? Because before you had said that the changes came after.
I'm sorry?
Is that before earlier you had stated that the changes came after?
No, the incorporation of Moldova,
The
USA
incorporation, yes.
preceded the approval of the University of Moldova's educational program by the dental board.
Yes, that's what I had read, but earlier you had said that the changes came after the approval.
The changes came after the approval. We became aware of changes that had been made after the approval. Those changes specifically were the addition of an international dentistry program. And for those of you that might not understand or be aware of what a international dentistry program is, most of the dental schools in California have those programs. It is a program where a graduate from a foreign dental school will enroll and be accepted into a dental school in the United States, and let's say specifically California. If they pass certain benchmarks of acceptance, they will be entered into as what is referred to as advanced placement students. They will be given the first 2 years of dental education in California for the dental education that they have had in their country of origin. They will then complete the last 2 years, since California's education, except for UOP, is a 4-year program. They will complete the second 2 years, third and fourth year, receive a diploma from that institution, and from that point on, they will have been graduated from a CODA-approved dental school, so referred to as advanced placement. And that's tradition, and there's certainly precedent set for that in the schools in California and in the United States. So the University of Moldova has instituted that international dentist or advanced placement program, where their students come in and are given credit for the first 3 years of the 5 years after having passed certain entrance examinations and other benchmarks that they need to complete, and then complete the last 2 years of the 5 years, then get a diploma from University of Moldova, which would then allow them the ability to become licensed in California or maybe another state as well, depending on what other states have those provisions.
Okay, I don't know.
So Ms. Chappelle has been waiting for a
Okay.
while.
Okay. Good. Okay. So then let's go.
Well, so I just want to say it again, and that is, what the date that Dr. Morrow mentioned, the collaboration between Moldova, USA, and the parent school was dated back to 2014. So that leads me to believe, again, my opinion, an intentional omission in the application process. The plan has always been there, all along. The school does not want to disclose it. So there's an ethical issue here, a serious ethical issue, in my opinion. And when it comes to ethical issue, it goes a long way. I keep reading this again and again and again, and I still might believe that USA Moldova is going to be a second campus of the school. The intention here is for them to create a satellite dental practice. One satellite dental practice where they will be housing these students. USA Moldova will be able to accept foreign citizens into the program. And it seems to me like only those who are accepted through USA Moldova will be able to come to the satellite dental practice in California to be trained. It's not the entire class of Moldova Dental School. It's only those that are accepted into the Dental Council of California at USA Moldova that will be entertained with the opportunity to go through the training in California. Now, I could read it wrong. You all can read it again and see if that's the correct interpretation. So again, I'm just going back to my original points, and that is this is not going to be an extramural site that we're all thinking about. Okay, I'm an extramural site. My clinics are. We take students on for maybe 4 weeks, 3 weeks at a time, and they go back to their original schools. They don't stay with us for the whole year. They don't stay with us for 2 years or 3 years. I don't think this is the plan for them, for USA Moldova, to have the students here for just 2 or 3 weeks. I believe the intention is to have them here for a much longer time. So it's just like a second campus. I don't think it's just a satellite dental practice. Because you can't call it a satellite dental practice, you know, when you plan to send your own faculty who are licensed in Moldova to come to train the students. It's not. It's a school campus. So I think that we really need to read this again and again and again and again to really understand what's hidden, what the hidden message is, what's really there. I'm very concerned. I have a serious issue with ethics, and I think that we have a serious issue here.
I just had some additional comments with that, and also, I guess the letter from the rector, page 4, in 2014, in anticipation of applying and obtaining board's approval, Moldova, I'll just shorten it. Representative began discussion with principals who founded U.S. Moldova, Moldova USA about assisting with local marketing designed to attract qualified applicants in California to apply to the facilities of medicine, pharmacy, and dentistry. I would like to know how many pharmacy students and medical students they also help apply to the school. Or is it just dentistry?
Just dentistry. Just dentistry. You don't board does not regulate pharmacists. So I think it just would not be an appropriate question.
Okay.
All right. So I agree with many of the board members on some of the questions that they were asking already, so I won't repeat that. And I personally see several red flags. I wanted to ask the legal counsel regarding, are they, and I don't want it to seem terrible, but are we fully equipped to do a thorough investigation into this matter? And if there might be, we need additional support or finding, because this is, I'm just wondering if there's a way where if we're not able to do a full, thorough investigation on this piece, maybe we can look at increasing help or adding help to do that. Or
the word investigation or investigate doesn't sit well with me because the board is supposed to separate itself from investigations and complaints.
Okay.
Because then if an investigation is conducted and the board moves to withdraw its approval, then the board members might be required to recuse themselves from that.
So then is there another method? Is there something where, because we want to I just want to make sure that we're getting the information, accurate information, and that it's been provided, because we have a lot of unanswered questions. And I believe even then, after the questions that we submit with them, there might be still questions unanswered. And so how do you fully move forward when you don't have all the information in front of you? So that's just a concern of mine. That's why I was thinking of investigation, but there must be another way
There is.
for us to, okay.
And there is a process to withdraw approval of foreign dental school, which is contained within section 1024.12. And I'll go ahead and read that.
Okay.
The board may at any time withdraw its approval of an institution that no longer meets the requirements of this division. Prior to withdrawing its approval, the board shall send to the institution a written statement specifying those deficiencies upon which it is basing its withdrawal of approval. The institution shall have 120 days within which to respond to the statement of deficiencies, either by providing evidence that the stated deficiencies do not exist or by providing a plan for timely correction of those deficiencies. A technical advisory group shall be convened. The statement of deficiencies and the institution's response thereto shall be presented to the technical advisory group for its review. The technical advisory group shall make a written recommendation to the board. The board shall make its decision no later than 120 days after receipt of the technical advisory group's recommendation and shall notify the institution in writing of its decision and the basis for that decision. So in essence, it's not an investigation.
Okay.
What you're doing, you're just withdrawing, taking a look at all of the information provided.
And I just want to make sure that at the end of the day, we are looking at the USA Incorporated portion of it, but they are responsible for any contracts or any individuals or organizations. So at the end of the day, it's who we contracted with or who we approved, they're responsible at the end. And so
They are.
Yeah.
Yes, they would be.
All right, thank you.
And comment a little more on the technical advisory group. Does that give us information of who constitutes that group?
Yes. It identifies how that group is selected in code.
That's correct.
Okay.
So there are guidelines in code.
And the citation for that is?
I don't have that in my memory bank. But our legal does here. Sure. While he's looking that up, Fran, can I have your permission to provide some information that I think is pertinent to the question? Yes or no?
I'm reading in this
and my head is back into this.
Okay.
And so ask your question again.
I just while he was looking that up, I wanted to just have a minute to provide some information to the board regarding what we're talking about at this point in time.
Okay.
Okay. Again, I have referred a number of times to Regulation 1024.8, and just a little clarification on that relating to shift in control or change and what that means. 1024.8B states this: nothing in this article shall prevent the board from requesting that the institution provide information, documents, or other evidence in order for the board to determine whether the change will affect the institution's compliance with the requirements of this article. The board shall make a determination within 60 days after receiving such written notification whether, because of the change, the institution is no longer in compliance with the requirements of this article.
To respond to the question regarding the composition of the technical advisory group, it shall be selected by the board and shall consist of 4 dentists, 2 of whom shall be selected from a list of 5 recognized United States dental educators recommended by a foreign dental school, which has been approved.
1636.4. Okay.
1636.4C.
C. Okay. And was that your only question?
Yes, that was it.
Okay. Anyone else?
conjunction with Dr. Lai.
Not just That's late.
That's
Yeah,
Lai.
I know.
Okay, so would it be helpful for the board to know the number of applicants, the number of qualified applicants, the number of applicants accepted, the attrition rate, and the increase in acceptance of applicants may allude that they would need a placement for supervised clinical practice as a satellite clinic. Did that make sense?
Not about the satellite clinic part.
Well, they were talking about opening a satellite clinic, possibly. So if we knew the number of applicants and the number of applicants that were accepted,
Correct.
would that show an increase
Yes. And
in
also,
attendance of these?
I think that's probably too many questions there. That's well put.
Yeah.
But give that to us again and pull the mic a little closer.
Okay, you want me to repeat that?
Yes.
Okay. So I know in CODA reporting, they want to know the number of applicants. They want to know the number of qualified applicants. They want to know the number of accepted applicants.
I just want to add to that if I can. Since this is an anticipated happening, not a happening that is already in existence, I think it would be more appropriate to what are your plans for? In other words, how many students are you anticipating that you will have obtaining their clinical training in this satellite campus, so to speak? When and if it happens, what is the size of it? Are you talking about 2? You're talking about 50? You know, I mean, what's your plan? Is that what you're saying? Because right now it hasn't happened, so they don't have the numbers to say how many they have accepted or so forth. So.
I just want to call your attention to 2.1.6 on page 3. It's very interesting to me when it says that the manuals, materials, instruments, and equipment used in order to accomplish the programs of studies approved by the Dental Council of California and performed in USMF need to be equivalent or similar to those used by the dental schools in California. So isn't USA Moldova supposed to be using the same materials, the same thing as what is being used at the Moldova School of Dentistry? Why would they be having a different manual, different set of manuals? It doesn't make any sense to me at all in that response.
Can I respond to that? Yeah. The University of Moldova does have a surcharge for all students, whether they are national students at Moldova or whether they are international students that are attending in Moldova. They have a surcharge for instruments and supplies for their clinical experiences. Okay. Right. So that's pretty standard.
It just doesn't, I mean, it's kind of confusing to me that the manuals, the equipment and all that approved by USA Moldova. Mm-hmm. You know, it's almost like, why would they even state that? Because they should be using the same manuals, the same materials at both campuses or whatever, programs, whatever it is.
As far as charges for syllabi and so forth, I'm not aware. I can't really speak intelligently to that regarding whether or not the parent university has a charge for manuals. I don't remember if that even came up in our. My assumption is that it was part of the tuition.
It's just interesting what it says need to be equivalent. You know.
Okay.
And again, just an informational, the University of Moldova is into international students. When we were there on our site visit, we advertised and had an open meeting for all students. All faculty and administrators of the university were barred from the meeting. And we were in closed doors, and we had a room full of students. There were a number of them that were from countries other than Moldova. There were a number of foreign students that attend that university. So students from the United States are not the only international students at that university. They market and they encourage international students to attend. It's nothing new for them. And U.S. students are not the only international students that are attending there.
Okay, we want to go to Mr.
Yes. I think the staff has done a great job at correlating some of the questions with the agreement, with the collaborative agreement. I guess one thing that that stood out for me is the advertising, and the advertising on the websites, because that's very powerful. It goes beyond California, like they said, and we all know that. I guess one of the things that, and I just couldn't find it, and it goes to staff as well, and not staff but board, but in our collaborative agreement, are we really do we have language? Because we're getting some of these questions or answers that we're getting. We didn't know they existed before. They're just popping up, which leads me to believe that there's other questions. There are some things that may come up in the future. I guess I want to find out is within the collaborative agreement, are we covering all of our bases with respect to, for example, advertising, websites, because they found a mistake in the websites and then they put a website committee together. And so I tend to smell something there. I don't want to, but do we have something that in our collaborative agreement that speaks to that and how it could be prevented from going all the way into left field?
Well, first of all, we didn't have a collaborative agreement.
We don't have a collaborative agreement with the institution.
We did not. The collaborative agreement was between the university and Moldova USA.
Okay. So we have the okay, I can see that. But how do we cover our bases
We
there?
have code and regulations.
Regulations,
Wait,
yes.
Don't crosstalk, please.
Okay. Okay. So in terms of our regulations, it is pointed out in our regs that we've been talking about previous to this. It's pointed out in terms of our websites, advertising, which is very powerful. That's how you recruit and you get in. So I just wanted to make sure that we're covered in all of our bases. I guess that's a question that we may need to think about, or maybe it's already there.
Okay. So now what were you saying?
I just said that we don't have a collaborative agreement. We have code and regulations.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Anything else?
Madam President, I guess in response to Chappelle's, I'm curious to find is there a disclosure while they apply for the approval, where it says that if you don't fully disclose, like for instance, then there are, if we find it later, I'm wondering if there's something of a disclosure when they do apply or when they are approved or so forth. Because that could be for any institution, you know, they can purposely omit, but if there's a disclosure there preventing, you know what, if we do find something later on that you did not fully disclose, then I'm wondering if there's anything there.
We'll look into that.
Yeah.
After the letter is sent to Moldova or the university, and the board receives the responses, the board can seek to no longer require any more information or additional information from them, and can make a determination on whether they want to place them back on provisional approval or withdraw approval, and require them to go through the entire process because information that should have been disclosed was not. So yes. That's it.
And what happens after the provisional approval? What happens after that?
You're fully approved now.
You have to go all provisional.
You're fully approved,
It
but
goes back into the, you said it goes back into the.
those would be the options, to place them back on provisional approval
And
or to seek to withdraw their approval. And then if the board does withdraw it, then they'd be required to go through the application process all over again and require them to disclose everything that's associated with the university and its operations.
But we're not at that point yet.
That's right.
excuse me, in the meantime, the students that are there and through all this process, going back to provisional or going forward, what happens with the students that are there? If they go back to provisional, they can still graduate?
Yes.
That would be no different from a university that loses its accreditation. Anything else?
I would just like to make a comment of the most recent letter that the board members received on the second page, where we're talking. I've got your copy. So where it's talking about Senator Polanco's involvement from the very beginning, and I'd just like to clarify. Our understanding has been that Senator Polanco has been a registered lobbyist in the state of California, and there wasn't any reason for us to believe, for the board to believe, that he was representing anything else but being a lobbyist on behalf of the school. Okay? So that being said, when he appeared on the same flights as our site team, unbeknownst to the site team, and I have to say that I got an emergency text from Dr. Morrow en route saying, oh my goodness, these people are on the same flights with us. What are we doing? When he got to the school, he said, what would be the purpose of Senator Polanco participating in the site visit? He's a non-educator. And so from what I understand, the school representatives agreed. So in his explanation, and I'm attributing this paragraph to Senator Polanco because he was the only one that would have known all this information. So I don't want stakeholders to believe, or I want board members to understand that Senator Polanco represented himself as a school representative from the very beginning. But there was no mention of a Moldova USA or the extent to which this was all being developed. Okay? In all my correspondence, which I do have available for the board to review, should you choose to do so, emails going back and forth, if they were with Senator Polanco, it was because he was identified as the representative, and in the emails, I identified that we needed essentially approval or whatever we needed from the school. So those emails are pretty clear. So when he goes on to talk about who got paid and how got paid, yes, I sent the documentation, the invoices, if you will, to Senator Polanco as the representative of the school. It was never essentially, we were never told up front that the payments were being made by somebody other than the school.
And thank you for the clarification for that, because I didn't know how to.
And board members, you can feel free to ask any questions you want to. This is probably a very good example of why the board, for the number of years, have said we are not appropriately equipped to be in the business of approving schools. Now, there are only 2 approved schools in the course of over 10 years that essentially this has been on the books for the board to do this. But this is the first time we've had this major nuance that's occurring on the side. And I appreciate your comment, Ms. Medina, about are we equipped? Because we are equipped to respond to a certain degree, and yet beyond that, we're not. But when an organization is saying that is marketing that they're approved by the board, and yet this board had no idea of that 3rd bullet under the general provisions, which is talking about this clinic that's going to be established. If we hadn't asked for the collaboration agreement, we wouldn't have known that.
And I would add that in addition to this letter, I recall the question coming up about who could travel and who could participate. That question came up before the travel. And so that information was known, if I'm not mistaken, that it would not be appropriate, that the people on the site team had to be specific, and that it would not be appropriate to other people. I think the other thing that I would add to whether we are equipped, I would say that we're more constrained. And a part of that constraint is that our process, the state process, only allows us, 2 of our members, to be involved in this, in addition to all the other activity of the board. And the approval process and everything that requires is boxes and boxes of material that has to be kind of discerned. And so I would also say, and I had been saying prior to this, that as it is, minus a separate entity within the board, that it's pretty difficult to do this. Even if it is absolutely and positively straightforward, it's pretty difficult to do. It's a labor. Is there anything else?
I have just one closing, should I say, comment, okay? In relationship to the site visit and an evaluation and who paid the expenses for that, I just want to let you know that Dr. Joseph Mamaliger, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the Moldova USA Incorporated, was also on the same airplane with us and was also at Moldova and at the university when the site visit took place. If you look at the collaborative agreement, section 3, which is the last section, under responsibilities of USA, under items 3.4, 5, 6, and on, this agreement is stating that University of Moldova USA will be responsible for all financial costs of re-approval process when and if it happens. Now, you talk about control. Who has control? Follow the money. I think I've said enough.
If there is nothing else, I'm going to suggest a motion. And the motion is to direct staff to, with all of this information that has been gathered, to draft a letter to the university asking these questions, asking for a date certain for response prior to the May board meeting. Got that, Mr. Secretary? Okay. Okay.
So that was your motion.
So that's my motion. So I'm going to move that and ask for a second.
Second. James, you, second.
Dr. Yu has seconded.
Or is this open for discussion now? Just briefly, there is an action requested that I think is pretty similar to what you're suggesting. But I think broadly what I'm interested in seeing is the reconciliation between the school's response, in other words, the letter we received earlier, with the collaboration agreement. And, you know, to me, that's kind of the core of what we're talking about here.
You can include that in your motion.
Okay.
I mean, just very broadly. I mean, I thought the action requested was we might have supplemental questions to that, which everybody, I think, should be encouraged to submit. But this action item here, I think, addresses the core issue, which is the discrepancy.
Okay. Okay. So the action item requested was to direct the staff to send a letter to the school requesting that, one, it clarify each of the provisions, two, reconcile the school's response with the collaboration agreement, which is what you asked, and three, to explain why the purpose of the acknowledgments and disclosure of enrolling in the School of Dentistry or USMF contains a signature line for a representative of USA, and for any additional information that the board desires.
So it'd be this motion plus all the questions that were asked.
Yeah, well, that's the additional
Before.
information, yeah.
So point of order.
Okay, so then I amend my motion accordingly,
Okay.
and you have all of that there.
Got
Dr. Yu,
and second.
agree? Disagree?
Okay.
Just, I do have a list of questions here, which I think everybody pretty much covered, but just for the record, I'd like to get those in, and you can do with them what you want.
Thank
So,
you.
Additional questions,
Well,
or you?
these are just ones that I wrote up that address some of the issues that were discussed today, and,
Okay.
you know, I just.
Why don't you get those to Karen?
Yeah, I will, thank you.
Okay. Okay. So before we move forward, is there public comment? Seeing that none, I then move the motion and ask Secretary to call the roll.
Right.
Yes.
Burton, aye.
Sorry. Burton, aye. Chan, aye. Chappelle Ingram.
Aye.
Chappelle Ingram, aye. Lai.
Yes.
Lai, aye. Laren.
Aye.
Laren, aye. Lay.
Aye.
Lay, aye. Mackenzie.
Yes.
Mackenzie, yes. Medina.
Yes.
Medina, yes. Morrow.
Aye.
Morrow, aye. Alagi.
Yes.
Alagi, yes. Pacheco.
Yes.
Pacheco, yes. Stewart.
Yes.
Stewart, yes. Witcher.
Yes.
Yes. Witcher. You.
Yes.
Yes. Unanimous. Motion passes.
Can I add, Madam President, that in the future, could we be provided with all the documentation for the next board meeting, the same that we received today, and then even from the previous meeting, just so we can have everything together and we can review it?
That's in here.
Oh, it is? No.
That letter is in here.
I meant, like, for instance, the flyer and some of the information that you mentioned. Was it in here as well? Like, you know, for instance, the advertisement flyer, all of that, unless we just look at our previous. I don't know if you know.
I'm going to just respectfully request that you either go to the website and look at it again on the meeting material, or a lot of board members keep their meeting materials. So, I mean, even if you're discarding meeting materials, probably pull things out that may continue to be discussed. But what we're trying to do is actually cut down on the paper, and putting together board meetings is a massive process, and I understand where you're coming from. It would be very convenient to have everything in one place, but I'll at this point just ask board members if they'll go ahead and refresh their memory for prior meetings. The meeting material is still on the website.
Okay, sorry.
Anything else? Okay.
I just want to add that many of those materials that you speak of were included in the agenda packet or meeting packet for November.
Yes.
And I have hard copies here, and I can give them to you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So, having finished that, we're going to break now for lunch. And I'm going to ask everybody to be back at 2 p.m.